All right, welcome to this week's video lecture. Each of you should have had an opportunity to meet with your clients this week, and what we're going to talk about briefly is how we take the insights gathered from our preliminary project meetings with our clients and turn those into an approach deck. So, last time we talked about your competitive analyses and presentations, and you should have some case feedback on that, and then we got your project meeting scheduled this week with your clients. Here are your teams. If you recall, we got our Target Food Distribution Center project with Broderick and Sierra and Eric. We've got our City of Denton Airport area kind of economic development assessment with Jahanara, Michael, Austin, William, and Joshua. And then we've got our two FlowServe projects with Elizabeth, Eric, Adam, and Catalina. So what I'd like to talk a little bit is using an example from actually a client that I worked with several years ago, Cisco Systems, the big networking giant. I want to look at one of their project definitions and then how we developed a project approach to go explore and answer to the project that they had outlined for us that we did at Cisco, right? So Cisco Systems, right, one of the big technology behemoths in Silicon Valley that focuses on kind of the plumbing of the internet, right? Routing and switching and security systems. And one of the things that they wanted our help with was the definition of a new set of solutions, right? Service offerings that embedded technology solutions, product offerings targeted at the data center. And so here is the SCQA, the Situation Complication Question Approach slide for this situation, right? So Cisco has identified this data center opportunity where there's an opportunity to sell systems or to sell solutions rather than individual boxes, right? Individual products. So rather than selling a switch here and a router there, what they want is a packaged solution. On the services side, on the port side, there is a presumption of value, right? There's an assumption that there's more value in a system level support model than on individual service offerings on a product by product basis, right? So when you buy a car, you get a warranty package. You buy a bump end-to-end 100,000 mile warranty solution for the car. You don't get an individual service package for the water pump and for the brake system and for the steering column, right? You get a kind of an end-to-end service package, right? And that's what they're trying to tailor here. The current situation, though, says that Cisco has traditionally been structured to deliver support on a device-by-device level, right? So they want to go to this solutions area, but they are currently tailored and kind of organized to deliver it on a device-by-device, right? So why can't they make this transition? What's the complicating factor? Well, they don't have a lot of experience in doing system-level support. Their technical assistance center, the TAC, or the support delivery team, isn't really structured to address system level issues, right? They're organized by server or by router or switch or security. They're not organized by data center, right? Which is, you might have all of those things in one environment. Now, how do I tackle the problems within that environment? And the other complication is, well, why is this a big deal? Well, customers are increasingly demanding this kind of system level solution rather than piecemeal offerings for each of the products. So the key questions in this project, how should a system level support offering be structured to ensure that the customer's needs are met, and two, Cisco can deliver these offerings profitably. And then, so those are really kind of two separate questions, but they're kind of embedded together. And then a third key question is, well, how should the support organization, the Technical Assistance Center, be reorganized or be structured to enable them to deliver this new solution, right? So some key research considerations, some key scoping considerations, right? We have to define, what does system level support mean? What are the deliverables and characteristics of this offering, right? So before we can talk about delivering and selling this product, we got to figure out, or this solution, we got to figure out what that means. We got to compare, the data center solution that is offered potentially by Cisco to, the other solutions that direct competitors might offer. Got to investigate the value of this solution with both the customers that are selling it and the their go-to-market channel partners that Cisco sells these products and services through. And we got to understand the operational impact, right? So there's lots of things going on here, right? But this is a key one-page kind of scoping slide of here's the situation, here are the key questions, here are kind of the research areas that we're going to go focus on, right? The next page has a little bit more definition around the project scope, right? Where are we going to be analyzing these, right? What type of products are involved? Who is going to participate, right? And then more importantly, what are the requirements for what Cisco is going to bring to the table, what the consultant, right? In this case, Accenture, but in your case, the UNT team, right? So getting those expectations that you need the faculty to identify your carriers in your carrier survey for, I think, team number 3 or team number 4 who's ever doing that carrier survey, right? Or you need Southwest Airlines to tell you which markets they're targeting, right? That's a key project requirement. What are those data requirements, enabling requirements that you have to have either from the client, from your faculty, or from your team in order for you to be successful? Kind of bring that up front and get buy-in into those activities, okay? And then what you see is what we call an approach overview. And this is just a presentation of what you probably have in an Excel spreadsheet or a Microsoft project plan, right? You're going to have major buckets of activities with sub-activities underneath that. And you may have a project plan that's 100 lines long with lots of sub-projects and milestones and interim deliverables, etc. But this is intended to be kind of a one-page overview of the key activities of the plan. And there's a couple important things here. First of all, there's 3, 5, 7, in this case 5 major buckets, right? You tend not to want to have 1 or 2 because that's just too few. You don't want to have 20, right? But you want to have a meaningfully meaty group of large buckets that kind of talk about the progress of the project, right? So if you were to describe how you're going to do this project in 5 or 7 major steps, right? What are they? Right? If you had your 30-second elevator pitch, and in this particular project, we're going to say, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define what a system solution is. Then we're going to do a competitive analysis, and then we're going to go interview our customers and channel partners to make sure we understand their needs. And then we're going to be able to understand what the offering is and assess the operational impact to the organization in order to kind of meet those needs, and then we're going to develop our recommendations, right? And in 30 seconds, I'm able to kind of define the 5 or 6 major steps of the project and communicate that out to the organization. But within each of those organizations, what we find, or excuse me, within each of those buckets, we find kind of the next level hierarchy of activities. And there's a couple of key points here, right? There's not 100 activities. There's not one activity. There tends to be, again, a meaningful grouping of sub-activities that kind of define what's going to happen within that bucket of work. Okay, they tend to be sequential in nature. They may run in parallel, but they tend to be sequential in nature. You'll also look at the verbiage of both the activities and the sub-activities. They almost always lead with an action verb, right? And that's just kind of good communication strategy. You don't want to lead with a lot of adjectives or just a noun. You want to say, these are things we're going to do. We're going to define what it means to be a system solution. We're going to establish, the technologies are there. We're going to assess. We're going to extract. We're going to refine. We're going to aggregate. We're going to research, right? Everything is an action that is going to be performed within the particular activity, okay? And basically with this one page, if a client was going to sit down with me, I could walk through these activities and say, this is how we're going to tackle this project. Now, within any one of these sub bullets, right, when we talk about research system level offerings, right, or conduct interviews with customers, that bullet seems like a very small, simple bullet, but that may then blow up into a whole set of small activities, right? But we can't communicate every one of those. We're trying to say, here are the major actions that are going to happen, and this is how we're going to carry forward with the plan. should be fairly straightforward for you guys, right? If you've done any kind of work planning effort, right? But this is just a way to communicate. We call this the chevron approach, right? You come up with the 5, 6, 7 major buckets and the sub buckets. If you were to then blow this out into a Microsoft project plan, these sub buckets, these sub bullets probably then have another 5, 10, 20 bullets underneath those, but you're not going to communicate all of that to a client in kind of an executive fashion, right? What you will do then is then kind of translate the verbiage of the action plan into a visual representation in a Gantt chart, right? So you can see we've got our same 5 chevrons on the left-hand side. We've got an overarching time span for that chevron. And then if we actually then wanted to map the sub-bullets, right, you see those gray bars are actually then mapped. For every bullet we had on a previous page, we have a gray bar on this page that talks about how long we're going to spend on those activities. And very quickly, as an executive or as a manager, I can start to understand where the kind of heavy load of this project is, right? I can also begin to assess risk points. One additional element to this might be key deliverables or gates. I might want to put a big red star, right here that says I'm going to have an interim deliverable, right? It's one of the things you might do is maybe compress the width of this chart, and underneath here, create a big long box that talks about deliverables. And within each of these major Gantt elements, we might have a sub deliverable that we present to our client. And so that, I think, would be a very good add to this chart that's currently not represented here. But what are the major deliverables within each of these sub buckets, and what are the major gates, right? Is there an activity, action, data set of analyses, whatever that is required to be done out of this work before the next set of activities can proceed, right? You need to call those out. You need to manage according to that. So I would ask you in your communication strategies that you develop an approach overview, that you then translate the approach overview to the timeline, but then within the timeline, you add to this, the 1 or 2 major sub deliverables within each of these buckets so that we can track against that. Okay. All right. So we've talked a little bit about how we want to go tackle our approach deck with the Cisco project example, and now we're going to pivot into what we need to do in the next week or so. So first of all, now that you've met with your clients, you guys need to spend some time getting together and processing what you've heard, right? What is the situation at hand? What is the complication? What are the key questions that your client is asking you to go address? What is the scope of your project? What's in scope? What's out of scope? And what are the key requirements that you have to have? So for instance, on the target project, you're going to have access to the personnel in the food distribution center to do the interviews and to do the process observations, right? For our FlowServe project, you're going to have access to the database systems so that you can pull in the pricing data and the routing data to do the analytical work. For the City of Denton, you're going to have the key executives made available to you, right? Identified and made available to you in order for you to be successful in your project. These are key requirements. There are others, right? But these are the ones that I remember off the top of my head. Then as your group, you guys should be brainstorming all the stuff that needs to be done. Don't try to start project flow planning it. Just brain dump everything that needs to be done in order for you to be successful. And then once you think you've got this kind of completely exhaustive list, then start drawing circles around the things that are likely to be grouped together and start bucketing them in a logical staged approach, right? So that your overall project plan is MECE. It's exhaustive in nature, but it's also, each grouping of activities is mutually exclusive from the next, and you don't move on to the next set of activities until you get your preliminary activities done. All right. And then develop an approach deck. Use the kind of UNT templates that I've been using for my lectures that are posted on Blackboard, but mirror the style, right? The situation complication slide, the project scoping slide, the approach overview, the timeline, the deliverables at the bottom that we discussed. use kind of that professional style to convert what you might put in an Excel spreadsheet or a Microsoft project plan into something that an executive can consume in a fairly straightforward fashion, right? Get your approach deck done by end of day Tuesday. Send it to me. Schedule time with me to review. If that's Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, get your team together, schedule time with me, and let me know when would be a good time to review that. If you email them to me, we might even do some initial revisions via email so that when we actually get together, we're looking at a fairly complete package. And then we'll need to schedule some time with our clients, hopefully to review your approach deck by end of next week. I think we could definitely do that for the City of Denton and the FlowServe projects. The Target project, I think we had talked about maybe pushing to the following week, and that's fine. Even the City of Denton, we might want to wait till the economic development lady got back, but we could meet with Quentin without her at the end of next week, just depending on how much progress you guys make. So key is getting together, getting your activities defined, and putting together your approach deck and having some initial iterations next week with me to get that polished off. If you have any questions, drop me an email, and we'll talk to you soon.